Buckle up for AEC Trailblazers, the Founders Files, where we crack open the stories of the brightest minds in the AEC startup scene. Forget institutional pitches. We're diving deep into the real personal journeys of these industry disruptors. Get ready for some casual chats firsthand.
Hello, and welcome everybody to another episode of the Trailblazers podcast, where we interview the most amazing minds and founders of the AEC. Here with us, we have Gary Sprague. He is such an amazing person, and let me tell you a little bit about him. He started in the world of finance. Gary's true passion for building led him to forge his own path as an entrepreneur. He co-founded Fintech, a company that became a leader in creating Revit content, the backbone of many building design projects. Recognizing the industry's shift towards the cloud, Gary saw another opportunity. In 2016, he helped launch Kingship, a cutting-edge solution offering cloud-based Revit content management, project collaboration, and valuable data analytics. Kingship customers include major international AEC firms such as Buro Happold Engineering, Bjerg Ingels Group, Herzog and de Meuron, Lang O'Rourke, Pace, and Cox Architecture. In his personal time, Gary loves to travel and spend as much time as possible on trails or the beach with his wife and 2 kids. Hey Gary, how's it going?
Hey Valentin, going well. Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here with us. Did I miss something on your bio?
No, nothing crucial there. Yeah, it was a good summary.
Actually, there's something. You speak such an amazing Spanish, and I've heard Catalan as well.
And Portuguese, and some Cantonese as well. So, yeah, I'd love to learn languages.
Man, that's wild. I bet Cantonese is super useful because you live in Hong Kong, right?
I do. Yeah, I've been here over 6 years now.
Man, is it Cantonese harder to learn compared to like Spanish, Catalan, or Portuguese?
Much, way harder. Yeah, I mean, first of all, once you know one of those like Romance languages, like you learn Spanish, then Portuguese, Catalan, Italian, French maybe is harder because of the pronunciation, but I feel like it's pretty easy to go from one to the other. Like I actually learned Portuguese in a Portuguese for Spanish speakers course, so it was like super fast. But Cantonese is just a whole other world of grammar, and it's a tonal language with like 7+ tones. People don't even agree on how many tones there are. So it's a challenge.
That's just insane because I feel Cantonese or Chinese are one of those languages that when you hear local people, you think they're mad or you don't even catch what the intent of what they're saying. I have a friend that speaks also Spanish, and he was like, speaking in Chinese. And then when he switches to Spanish, he's the nicest person ever. Like, hola, ¿cómo estás?
Yeah. Even Cantonese people say that. They're like, it sounds like we're like really angry or we're or we're like yelling, but that's just kind of how it sounds to a degree. Yeah, they're very direct communicators.
Sounds like that. And how you ended up living there? Like, I'm just curious because you're British, right?
No, I'm American.
Oh, you're American.
Yeah. So even though like most of our team is in the UK, so I'm there a lot. But no, I'm from the States. I grew up in New Jersey and then lived in California in the Bay Area for like most of my adult life and was there for about 15 years and then met my wife there, but she's from Hong Kong. And then when we, decided to get married and start a family, we decided to come here to do that. So Hong Kong is a good place to have little kids. It's there's a lot of conveniences here that are hard to come by in the States or other places.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But that was before or after you started working at the Founder Kingship?
That was after. Yeah. So moved here in 2018. And that was actually like the easiest part of the whole move because we were kind of set up from the beginning with Kinship and prior to that with Andekin as like a remote team. So way before, COVID forced everyone to learn to work remotely. That's just kind of how we were. And so I was the only person in the States. Everyone else was in, UK or other places in Europe. And so, I just put the laptop in the bag and flew to the other side of the world. And instead of being 8 hours behind everyone, I was now 8 hours ahead and kind of just picked up from there. So yeah, that was the easy part.
Interesting. We'll come back to that. I'm just curious how everything works with being in so many different time zones. But let's start with how you ended up in the AEC.
Yeah, it's a good question because I don't really have any background in AEC prior to Andekin. So I didn't go to school for, architecture, engineering, anything like that. Never worked in the field. After university, I was working really in like socially responsible finance, working for I worked for a loan fund. I worked for for an investor network. I worked for a foundation. And those were all around like funding social impact and environmental mission businesses. So it was like connected to entrepreneurship. And, I learned a lot there kind of by proximity and also just taking on different roles in operations and marketing, kind of customer support stuff. But really the entrance into AEC came through my co-founder, Jose Fandos, who you also know. And he was the one who had ended up, we had actually met a long time ago. We've known each other for like 25 years now. And we worked together, in the past on just some like kind of technology, web technology businesses and projects and kind of the early days of the internet, so to speak. Maybe not early days of the internet, but early days of kind of like web-based businesses and e-commerce and that kind of stuff. And I was doing my thing in the world of social finance. And then he was working for like a kind of digital modeling firm in London, and he got exposed to the industry that way. He ended up doing, like drafting and coordination stuff there. But he was always like a technology person at heart, and just like me. And he ended up going to an Autodesk university and learning about Revit and kind of having this, epiphany of like, well, there's this new technology called Revit, this new software that's going to like change the industry, but it's all built on content, right? And so like, who's going to make the content? Why don't we make the content? And so, we were always in touch, and he reached out to me about like, did I want to, work with him on this business? And it sounded really interesting and fun. And so I just kind of signed up for that and have learned everything along the way, from him, from other people in the company, and really a lot from our customers. So it's just been kind of learning by experience.
It's tough. Feel that you come from a different industry and you have to learn our industry, but also at the same time, I think it might be an advantage because you have a different perspective and you're not sometimes biased.
Yeah, I think to be honest, like when I first got into the industry and even for some years afterwards, like I had a lot of imposter syndrome around being somebody, who was helping lead a business in the space, but wasn't from the industry and didn't know the industry. And it's a huge industry. Like there's so much to learn. But over time, I think, two things kind of emerged for me. One was realizing that nobody knows the industry sort of as a whole. Like there's so many different disciplines, so many different types of projects. Things are regional, so kind of nobody has the full picture. People know their slice of it. And so I know my slice of it, right, over time. And the other thing was, realizing that there are some benefits to having that outsider perspective. I mean, I think there's a lot of, I don't know if it's bias. It's just kind of like what people are used to or how they see things based on, their experience. And I guess I come with more of just somebody who's thinking from a technology and product and user experience perspective. And maybe I get less caught up in some of the narratives or some of the sort of common conceptions around how things need to be or how things should be within the industry.
Yeah, maybe you don't make everything personal. I feel that we architects, engineers, we end up saying like, we need a new Revit, or we need this, or we need that, because our industry deserves better. And sometimes you cannot.
Dude, that's been one of my biggest like pet peeves. Is I feel like, especially architects, are really negative on AEC. Like, we're so behind, like we suck, like the technology isn't good enough, like we're not good enough, we're so outdated, or we're just not getting things done the way we should be, we're not innovative enough. And I think first, like as a design industry, and especially within architecture, where I feel like there's more tendency to want to be visionary, which is good. Like architects should, I think, try to be visionary. But because it's a design industry with a lot of vision and like sort of forward-looking attitudes, people set a really high bar for what they think the technology should deliver. And like overall, that's a good thing. But I think if you look across to any other major industry, like it's not like they are, in the future either, for the most part. I mean, you look at things like Fintech. I think people consider Fintech to be probably generally more advanced than AEC, or finance to be more advanced. But, if you look under the hood of a lot of Fintech things, it's like, duct tape and staples holding things together behind the scenes. Like you do something in an interface and it looks like magic, but behind the scenes, like people are still using legacy databases and doing like old school transfers and data capture and things. And then they present it in a really nice fancy layer, but like behind the scenes, it's still a bit of a skunk work. So yeah, I think AEC, we're generally too hard on ourselves in this industry. We should be more optimistic or more celebratory of what we have accomplished and where we are.
Amen to that. But even if, let's say that Fintech were decades ahead of us, let's say, or cars or whatever.
Right.
Like I think it's even not fair to compare one industry to the other. Like there is no point in comparing. Yeah. It's like comparing, like, I don't know, a 50 years old dude with a 20-year-old guy and make them run and see who's faster. And it's different processes. Like Fintech is not an industry that works per project. We work per project. And we're in an industry, we work per project. Every project is different. All the stakeholders on a project are different. And at the same time, all the projects take on average 5 to 10 years. So you cannot advance at the same speed when you have all that. Fintech is mostly digital. Construction is mostly physical. So even if that were the case, I feel it's even unfair to compare it and say we're behind. Behind compared to what?
100% agree. I mean, I think there's an argument to make that AEC is like the most complex industry. If you look at other major industries, I mean, I don't know about maybe like the food industry is also incredibly complex, but there's so much variation, whether it's the type of project, whether it's where it's being done. The projects are long-term. you have like a ton of stakeholders per project. You're dealing with physical reality, like you said, finance that's digital. They're not dealing with materials and products that need to be assembled and, need hundreds or thousands of people to work on them. I don't know, you look at like healthcare and that is also really complicated, or say automobiles is also complicated, but again, healthcare like is also, there's some super advanced stuff and some super old school stuff and super outdated stuff. And it really depends where you go and what kind of condition you have, like how advanced are things. I feel, one of the things that people talk a lot about today in AEC is like, we need to industrialize construction, sort of turn it into more of like a manufactured process as opposed to this old school, design and build process. We should be more, manufacturing buildings. And I always think like that can work, and it's not a bad idea, like applied to one type of building with like in a very sort of specific case. But, you have a factory to produce like an object or a set series of objects, and you run that factory for years producing the same thing over and over again. And buildings generally aren't like that. And people don't like really want them to be like that. I mean, we don't all want to live in the same kind of apartment that looks exactly the same as everyone else's everywhere all over the world, or, eat in restaurants that all look exactly the same or whatever it is. So I think, it's apples and oranges. And I guess the question would be like, is the industry advancing, from 5 years ago or 10 years ago? Like, have we made a significant amount of progress over that time period compared to where we were? And I do think things have changed a lot since, I first got into the industry, or even 5 years ago. So, when I first came in, I believed kind of all that narrative, and the longer I'm in it, the less I believe in that narrative of like, we're so behind or we're not moving fast enough.
We completely agree on that. And also, switching gears a little bit here, but when we met at the conference in Riga, I was really surprised, also amazed by the nice class that you presented there, where you actually gave us a picture of how everything went with kingship and the time it takes, and that also, what I'm trying to say is that the time it takes to implement technology is not also a fact on the projects and the way our industry works, but also the way on or the time it takes for startups to implement the technology and to also get traction on the industry. So it's not also a fact of just startups taking, not being enough startups out there, not being enough money out there. Maybe it's the case, we need more VCs for sure, whatever in our industry, but there are a lot of startups like yours are trying to do this, but it takes a long time. It might not sounds like something fancy, or like you're not a winner if you don't make it and you become a millionaire in 2 years. But the reality in our industry is so different from that.
Yeah, I think you're generally right about that. I mean, I think there are different factors that play into that. One is like, we're in a very B2B market, right? There's not really like a consumer construction industry. I mean, maybe there is for like, interior design or something like that, or sort of home renovation stuff on a small scale. But generally, it's an enterprise sales environment, and that's something that's hard to grow super quick. And there's also like such a, range of technological maturity among firms and their appetite for adopting new technology. So just finding the customers who are willing to pay for new technologies and invest in them and stick with them is a challenge. Definitely my patience has grown over time. Again, like when I first started, when we first launched Kinship, we had, visions of like, this thing is going to be a rocket to the moon, and, just give us a couple of years and then we'll be there. And, it's been 8 years, and, we've grown steadily. We've had, a couple of tough years along the way. And, but like for us, it feels like, we've come a long way. And like, in a way, if I look back at the beginning and I told myself, yeah, you're going to have, this kind of customer base and you're going to be, generating this much revenue, like I would be like, wow, that's amazing. I still am not satisfied with where we are, but I do think, things take time. It takes time to figure out like who your customer should be, how to really solve their problems, and how to sell and implement the solution, because I think it's easy to find the individuals that love technology and want to have it. But it's a different thing to then like successfully implement it across a firm. And some solutions are more geared towards like the one tech person or the few tech people in a firm are going to use it. And so if they love it, they buy it, they use it, that's great. Kinship isn't like that. Kinship is a tool that's for everyone on the design team or everyone that's working on models for projects. And again, that's not just the techies. I mean, you could say anyone working in Revit is a techie. I don't think that's true, and so you have to like sell it to an enterprise where they're willing to pay for and say that the whole team should be using this tool, and that takes time. So I think patience is a virtue. I was listening to a podcast today where it was about a guy named, I think his name is Paul Getty. He was once like the richest person in the world, is a famous like oil entrepreneur in the US. And I forget if it was him who said it or somebody else, but it was basically like, you can always stay afloat. Like if you're running a business, you want to make sure that you just always stay afloat. Like eventually you'll get there. The worst thing you can do is kind of panic or sink your ship. But like the idea that like there's going to be some quick path to, ultimate success, or it's going to be smooth sailing once you figure everything out, just doesn't exist. There's always a lot of like trials and tribulations along the way, and things take time to come together.
That's a really good advice. That it's easier to say than done. But easier than done. Yeah, sure. Because like, we all want to stay afloat, but sometimes when you have a crisis, or it's hard to have a cold mind and decide like, hey, let's not worry about this. Let's do this or that, and it's hard. There is no recipe. There is no manual to do it. And even you yourselves, I feel you also have something that for me it's amazing, which you're bootstrap, right?
Yeah, fully bootstrapped.
And that's also tough. Like, not saying venture back is easy either, but bootstrap takes much more patience than be venture back.
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. That's definitely part of like the time horizon that you look at with a business. And I think a lot of the like, hyper growth model that's been kind of hammered into us as entrepreneurs is like, this is the goal, is to like have the hockey stick, curve of growth. Like, what fueled that? VC money, a lot of capital, and just being able to like spend way ahead of where a business actually was in terms of its business model. And by that, I mean, like, does the business make more money than it spends? Like, that is kind of at the end of the day, like, what defines whether a business is good or successful or not? Does it earn more than it spends and have enough to pay for its continued existence and growth? Then it's a good business. It could be small, it could be big, but you look at like, the sort of darlings of that last kind of hyper VC era, whether it's like a WeWork or Uber, and it's like these companies are still like, either they didn't work in the end, or they're still struggling for profitability. These ones that kind of like exploded overnight. Other ones, I'm thinking of like, for example, like HubSpot as a CRM. Like, I think they've been around like a long time. I mean, the company is huge now and, keeps growing really well, but like they are not an overnight success. They took years to kind of build what they have. And others, could do things like sell ads, like if you're Google or your Facebook, like, just get all the data and then sell it. And again, you're playing in a different world there of like consumer interest. People want something for free. It's easy. They'll use it. They don't care, and so on. Like AEC is not that world. So, I think we've certainly had those moments of panic or moments of crisis, right? Of like, is this going to do us in, or how do we get over this or get past it? Or like, man, that's so demoralizing. Like it's hard to kind of get back up and keep going. But I think, the longer you go, the easier it gets to find that kind of equanimity with those things.
Oh, absolutely. But it sounds you have a really nice partner and team, and that also helps a lot. Like having someone that you can turn into and say, you know what, I'm extremely frustrated, and this person telling you like, don't worry about it, and the same thing happened to him, and I don't know. I feel that helps a lot.
Yeah, for sure. I heard this story about, I think Steve Jobs when he was at Pixar. Like there was a time where like Pixar, it wasn't clicking yet, and they were kind of struggling to figure out how they were going to make it or sort of how to sell what they had. And he said something like, there was this long period where we were all depressed, but the good thing was we weren't all depressed at the same time, and I feel like that rings true for me in a lot of ways. And there are 3 founding partners in our business, myself, Jose, and David Saith. And we've all known each other for, I've known them for like 25 years. They've known each other even longer. We've been involved in other ventures and projects together. So there's just a lot of trust, and a lot of like just knowing each other and knowing how we all sort of click or how to deal with each other when we're not clicking. And that goes a long way. I think it's to be a solo founder is very hard. I mean, there are benefits to it, but having some partners is great as long as you have the right ones. I think that's a huge thing, right? You gotta be partnered up with the right people. Because I was just talking to another AEC entrepreneur yesterday who was like saying, I need to find a co-founder. And I was like, take your time with that, man, because that's like, it's in a way, it's like, it's more permanent than a marriage, like you start a business together and it's not easy to get out of. It's not easy to change it up once you've made that commitment. And, we've had times where things were pretty rocky and somebody wasn't happy. And, if it wasn't like we were really partners, if I was just an employee or if somebody else was just an employee, maybe we would have left and walked away from it. But you're invested, and your equity is there, and it changes the calculation. So, I think having partners is hugely helpful for getting over those moments. You just got to be sure that you're with people that, you trust and you like and you enjoy working with, and that makes everything so much easier.
Oh, absolutely. One of my mentors, he has a large AEC firm, and he every time we have this class of what should I do with a company, or he always asks me two questions. First is like, can you maintain the company? Are you losing a lot of money that you cannot maintain it? Or if the answer is no, the next answer comes and it's like, are you happy? Like it's affecting your personal life.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I do feel the first one is it might be easier for me. I think it's easier because you can always fire people, I don't know, get a grant, or there is always a solution. It might be not the ideal solution, but I feel there is always a solution in most cases. On the later one, for me, it's much harder. It's a balance that is hard to keep between, I need to hard work on this, but then I need to have, spare time with my family and with my friends and be healthy. And that, for me, it's much harder to maintain. And I prioritize it. Yeah. It's much harder to maintain than the first one.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think that's like a continual learning that I'm always going through, is like how to find that right balance. And if I'm not feeling happy, why, and what can I do to address it? I think like the idea that I'll always be happy, to come to work or to be doing what I'm doing every single day without fail. Maybe there are probably people who do experience that, and great for them. But I think for like most people, there are going to be times where you're like, is this really like worth it? Or, I'd really rather not have to do this. But then I look at sort of like the larger mission, or the larger game, and like, do I want to be in that game? Do I still want to be on that journey, even if right now I'm not feeling so happy about where I am at this moment? And for that, I always end up saying yes. Like, is there another journey that I would rather be on? No, there isn't. Like, I might not be happy in this moment, but I'm happy that I'm on this journey, and I still want to see it through. I'm not sure it's well, I would say I don't think it's simple to find that right balance between like, work and personal life and family life. The thing that I've sort of, learned in some cases the hard way is like, being happy with one's, personal life and one's family life makes working easier, and also like gives me motivation. So I think in the past, I did go through a period where I was more like obsessed with the business and feeling like I have to, put this above everything else because I have to turn it into this or make it to this point. And if I don't give everything I have, then it might not happen. And then you actually kind of get drained down, because then other parts of your life suffer and you're not happy with that. Whereas now for example, I prioritize like exercising a lot more than I used to, because, well, I know when I exercise and I'm in a better mood, then I feel better, I have more energy, and okay, that's not working, but it actually has a positive knock-on effect there. So to sort of say, I don't have time to exercise because I have too much work to do, is kind of like short-term, I'll get something more done today and maybe the next day, but like over a period of weeks or months, it's actually going to be counterproductive.
Oh, absolutely. And I do think that, and I hate to generalize, but I don't even think there is one person in the world that is always happy, because it's natural for me to have periods of unhappiness, unless you're a psychopath or something like that doesn't even count.
Yeah.
But
they're the lucky ones.
Yeah. Yeah. Until they commit a crime or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Until they're caught.
But it's natural. It's natural to have periods of unhappiness, and it's like Elon Musk said it one time, and he was like, "My life it's misery, misery, misery until I get a little bit of happiness of some success. I enjoy it a little bit, and then next day is happiness again and misery and I wouldn't take it to that extent. And maybe that happens when you have 4 of the 5 of the largest companies in the world at the same time. That may happen. But for us mortals that we only have one company, I think it's critical the balance. And also to have right balance will allow you on times when you have problems in your family. Like it might happen that something, a friend dies or whatever, or someone gets sick, and then your job's going to be there for you to also help you when that happens, because it will balance out. Like, hey, I'm not having a hard time in my personal life, but I know I can go and work, doing something I love. So I feel it's important because of that. Also, because it also helps you on the other way around,
Yeah, true. Yeah, very true. I mean, sometimes work can be that refuge or that thing that also, gives you energy that you can use elsewhere or gives you comfort. And again, like I'm lucky to have two co-founders that I consider friends, and people that also know me personally. So when I have, personal challenges and need to kind of, talk to somebody, like they're actually people I can talk to about that, and they can help me think through things or just cheer me up and, and also kind of help put things in perspective. But I was thinking of what you said made me think of two things. And one was, I heard Gary Vaynerchuk say like, work-life balance. It's not about like every day is like perfectly balanced or every week is like, it's always in balance. It's more like long-term. Like there will be periods where you're more heavily into work and periods where you're more heavily focused on personal stuff. And like over a longer period, these things can balance out, or I guess you want to hope that they do balance out, but it's like not realistic, to expect that every day or every, moment is going to feel like so harmonious. And the other thing that I was thinking about was, just what you were saying about Elon Musk saying, happiness and then misery, misery, misery. I think it's also about choosing like what kind of life do you want to have. And again, that model of like, let's raise, tens of millions of dollars and just push like, until we're a rocket ship taking off, like that is going to consume your life, probably, because not only is work going to be super busy, but you're going to have people breathing down your neck demanding that in the next 12 or 24 or 36 months, you produce like an amazing growth trajectory that's going to make them the 10x or 100x return that they're expecting. And you have to decide if that's what you really want to sign up for. And I think like for us, there were times where we thought about raising money and tried to raise money. But like in retrospect, I feel like for us, we agree it's like it was a blessing in disguise that never worked, because we're able to manage the business the way we want to. We're able to like keep things on a trajectory that we're happy with. And for some people, it might seem like, you're not shooting sort of high enough, fast enough, whatever. But like, okay, we're all still here together and we're happy people, and we have like, good personal lives and, our health and everything like that. And that's also, I think, a choice that maybe people aren't always thinking about when they get into founding a business. They think like they have to follow this one type of path, and that's what defines success or achievement. And you also need to think like how do you want to go about it? What kind of business do you want to build? Like we admire a lot like the guys at 37 Signals. I don't know if you follow them. They do the Rework podcast. Their main product is Basecamp, but they've made a lot of products over the years. Yeah. And they're like two guys. One is the creator of Ruby on Rails. That's like the tech guy. But they never raise money, or they raise like a very small amount of money once. And that's it. And they've always believed like in like, let's just grow by selling our product and earning money, and let's stay in control. And like over the years, and they've been around a long time, probably like 20 or years or more doing what they do. And they make, tens of millions of dollars a year now, and they're not publicly traded. They're not a unicorn, whatever, but hey, there are a couple of founders who make, a hell of a living doing what they love. And they took maybe 15 years to get to that point, but like now they can kind of live their lives the way they want to. And that's more the model that I think, appeals to us.
No, I agree on that. And I do think that first is about how you define success. And I feel that's a personal decision. And there is no right or wrong. But you need to be sure that it's your decision and not something that it's imposed to you, which sometimes it might happen. Like even for me, sometimes I don't know, I'm on X or I'm on Medium or whatever, and I read these really crazy stories about people doing this product or that product or getting millionaires. And sure, it sounds so tempting, like, oh, I should try that, like B2C and try to become a millionaire from, well, that's not how real life works. And I can try, but the problem is what happens if I'm not successful? Like I might be suffering so much time in the meantime, and there is no guarantee I will make it. Like most people don't make it when they try that path. So, and I'm not against that. I'm just saying it's not for me. Like I've tried the path of, being a hard worker and just destroy my personal life. And it doesn't work for me. It doesn't work. I prefer the balance. So I do think the only I sometimes advise like really young entrepreneurs, and what I tell them is just make sure you are really decided the path you're choosing, and it's not something that's imposed because of your friends or society or social media or whatever. Like it's need to actually resonate with you, and sometimes it's hard to take that decision.
Yeah, and I think that also goes to like kind of the whatever product you're building or service you're offering, like because success is not just about, say, how much money you make out of the business, but like, are you doing something that's fulfilling? That it might not be like your overriding singular passion in life, but like, are you fulfilled by what you're doing, and what do you find fulfilling about it? And I think, some people find just kind of high, quick growth to be like really satisfying, and definitely growth I find satisfying, but I also really, really love like, working with individual customers and knowing our customers and seeing them get results from the product and having them stick with us for years and years. That to me is like extremely gratifying. And so if I think about like, going from, hundreds of customers to thousands of customers in 12 months, I'm like, well, I don't think the experience is going to be the same, like for me or for the customers, and like it might please an investor or it might look good on a spreadsheet or a graph, but like, is that really the kind of work I want to be doing? And I think for me, the answer there is not really. I mean, I'm curious what that would be like, but like if I imagine myself in that mode, it's not really one that appeals to me, at least not over the long term.
That makes so much sense. And what do you feel is gonna be the future for Kingship in the next, I don't know, 5 or 10 years, now that you're speaking about like growing customers or the product or features?
Yeah.
What are you planning for Kingship in the next 5 or 10 years?
10 years is that's a really long time. I don't think I even want to venture an answer there. Even like 5 years feels like, you have ideas, but it's always an evolution, and things are sort of not constantly, but consistently updating and changing. But I think like in terms of that long-term direction of the product, there are a couple or a few things that we're always talking about and thinking about. And, one is like, is basically data. I guess is the simple way of putting it. And Kinship at its core, it's a content management solution for teams that work in Revit. So we're talking about managing libraries of digital objects and tracking those and finding those and providing analytics on those. But the other part of what Kinship does is track the projects where those objects get used. And so Kinship is running there, inside of Revit as an add-in, and is able to keep track of, what objects are being used in this model, like who's worked on it, what's kind of the latest information. And again, this is all kind of helping people manage projects and project delivery within Revit. But at the end of the day, all that data that's part of those projects, that's part of those objects, ends up in that customer's Kinship account. And that is now data that you could say is, in a sense, liberated. Let me get the quotes in here, liberated from Revit. And we feel there's like a lot of value in that, in having that data outside of the design software context, where it can be leveraged, analyzed, connected to other data, shared in ways that bring a lot of new value and longer term value than just the delivery of say, one project. So, I think looking at it from that side, it's about kind of, building up a really valuable data set within the platform that customers can then leverage in new ways that bring them value outside of the Revit context, which is where that data is initially coming from. And then I think the other thing that we talk about is just kind of, two things. One is like collaboration. So we have, right now Kinship is a tool that an individual firm uses to manage their own stuff, their own projects in Revit, their own content libraries in Revit. We do have some, initial features that allow for sharing, say, content libraries with other firms that you might be working with, or somebody that you need to help with your content, whatever. But like, we don't have ways of firms really collaborating on projects or sharing the project data they have in Kinship with each other. And we've had requests for that and questions about that, and customers telling us, we know this other customer is using Kinship and we're actually working on the same project. Like, isn't there a way we can, link up here and share these things? So that kind of like collaboration, going from a place where you just manage your own stuff to maybe where multiple stakeholders, I don't want to say all the stakeholders in a project, because in a way that's difficult, but maybe the key stakeholders in a project can all use it to collaborate around that project, is something that I think we're in a good position to tackle. And the third thing is kind of, coming full circle back to where we started, which is with manufacturer content creation. So, we still do create Revit content for manufacturers, and we publish some of that on our blog, and we create our own collections of free content that we publish through our website as well. And then we have the firms that are using Kinship to manage content and give their teams content they need. And they're often and increasingly asking us, like, is there a way we can get that content through Kinship? And so we want to link up those sides. We've been doing the content creation for manufacturers for years. Obviously, they want firms to find their content and use their content. And now we have Kinship, which has a lot of firms using it. So bringing those two sides together is something that we also see as an important evolution of the platform. And kind of one of the key points there being, relative to other BIM content kind of catalogs that are out there, whether it's, say like BIM Object or BIM Store, others, like those catalogs are out there on the web. You can go there, you can download them, and like that is valuable. And those firms, are addressing a need that people have. And That's why, BIM object has had like whatever millions of downloads, but they don't end up like tying into to the projects, right? So like what happens with that content, where is where is it used? How is it used? Is just kind of like a black box, right? And Kinship has the advantage of tracking projects that firms are working on for their use. And so even like today within a firm, if you're using Kinship, like, oh, this content in my library has been used this many times in this many projects, and these are the people that put it there, and was it modified, and what's the latest information in that, object within that model, and so on. And again, and we think, for the supply chain, like that could also be, offer hugely valuable analytics, and in a way that obviously would respect privacy and security. It's not about like sharing the customer's information just willy-nilly with every manufacturer. It's not that. It's like, if you were a manufacturer, you might be able to know like, among the products that I'm putting out there, these are the ones that are used the most, and they're being used the most in, the UK. And that's not a market we're focusing on for marketing. Maybe we should, or like, maybe we should focus our marketing just on those products in that region, because those are the ones that are being used a lot. Or, our products are being used in education projects. We didn't even think of the education market as one that might use our light fixtures or our bookshelves or whatever it is. And that's something that helps you kind of gain market intelligence. So yeah, those are just a few of the kind of, I guess, most interesting ideas that we talk about and try to work towards.
Big plans, and they all
for sure.
Yeah, you were like, well, we don't have that many big plans, and then you were like, this master plan. So, but I love it. I do feel there's huge value on just creating assets outside of the Revit world, where they can actually have their own life and be accessed by different stakeholders on different information levels, priorities, whatever. But I do feel that there's going to be a huge market for that. And for sure, what you mentioned about collaboration with other stakeholders within the same project, or helping manufacturers, or even connecting to your own content you create. Like you have so much to do, so I'm excited to see where Kinship goes in the future. So this talk has been really great. But before we wrap it up, can I ask you a couple of ping pong questions?
Yeah, for sure. Go for it.
Right. Can you tell me a great AEC software?
Revit? I mean, I feel like people love to hate on Revit, but actually, it's also an amazing tool, and is sort of the foundation of how so many projects in the industry get delivered. And yeah, I say that because I feel like it gets too much hate for how good of a tool it is. And like, yes, it could be a lot better, but maybe there's a reason why the market doesn't have a lot of like serious competitors to it. And it's not just because it's owned by Autodesk, but because it's really hard to make something that can do so much so well, and keep expanding. The other one I would highlight is kind of at the other end of the spectrum is IFC.js. I mean, I'm not sure if that's even what they're calling it now, but the work of that open company, Antonio Viegas, like I think what he's put together there, and also like the community he's developed around that, and how that's growing and maturing is really outstanding. Like I haven't used it personally, but the things that I've seen it do, and again the sort of involvement of the community around it, I think is really impressive.
Yeah, really cool for sure. Your favorite building in the world, and have you ever visited?
Well, I think it would be weird to have a favorite building in the world that I haven't visited, because then I would really be like, how do I know it's my favorite? Yeah, this is a hard one. I mean, so many buildings. I'm not like a big favorites person. I always feel like, well, there's different things for different contexts, but I feel like one building that like I always want to be able to go back to and that I just could stare at for like hours is Sagrada Familia in Barcelona. I think just like the organic detail of the Gaudí side of that building is like I don't even know how somebody could design that or execute it to that level of sort of organic, shape and form at that time period in history, and have it come out so sort of perfectly. And then there's the other side, which is just like this continual evolution that's seemingly never ending. I mean, I hear it is going to end in the not too distant future, but just the fact that it's this kind of ever evolving structure is so cool. And one day to be able to go back and see it completed would be amazing. The other thing I think about though, when you ask like favorite building, is like I would honestly be like my childhood home is like my favorite building in the world. Like I think so much of what forges like a personal connection, like your sort of emotional feeling towards a building, like actually comes from the experiences you have there, rather than just like, is it an amazing, design or execution? And I think, the design of buildings can definitely affect whether you're able to develop that or what kind of connection you can develop. But that's why I was like, it would be weird to have a favorite building that I haven't been to, because like I wouldn't be able to feel it,
No, yeah, that makes sense. And finally, do you have any books or book that you recommend to the audience?
Yeah, I think again, like I think that's a hard one. There's so many books I love, but like thinking of this audience, which I would say is like a lot of entrepreneurs, maybe, hopefully. There's a book called Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. I don't know if you've heard of that book before. No. The
Emperor Marcus Aurelius.
Yes, yeah, the Emperor. So that's kind of one of the amazing things about it. It's written by like a sitting Roman emperor as he's running, the largest empire in the world. But it's also it's like an amazing book of philosophy, and it's one of the core like texts of Stoicism, which has a lot of like following these days. But I read it maybe like, I want to say like 12 years ago or something like that, and it's just really great advice for managing to stay like steady and happy or content and sort of at peace with yourself in the world. And I think especially for entrepreneurs who face so many ups and downs and challenges and doubts and big decisions and things and feedback, like it has a lot of wisdom in there about just kind of staying centered in yourself and knowing what you can control and what you can't, and choosing where to put your energy to kind of live in a healthy and productive way.
Interesting.
So it's a good one.
I love books.
Yeah.
I will read it for sure and come back with feedback.
All right. Yeah. Next time I see you, I'll ask you what you think about that.
Yeah, man. Like this podcast is amazing. Like I don't need a psychiatrist anymore. Like I can just speak with you about philosophy, and then I get books recommended. Like this is a free session, man.
Yeah, well, I've loved being here, and the time has really flown by. It's been a really fun chat, and looking forward to the next time we can talk. So
absolutely. Just one more thing: where can everybody know more about Kingship and yourself before we say goodbye to each other?
Yeah, so Kinship is online at kinship.io. So that's KINSHIP, kinship, like, you're related to people or friendship, kinship.io. And for me, I don't know, I'm on LinkedIn. That's kind of the only place I'm really active. I have a Twitter handle, but don't do anything there. So yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. I think if you search Gary Sprague or Gary Kinship, you'll find me right away.
All right. thanks so much for your time. It has been amazing, and I hope to see you again. All right?
Yeah, thank you, Valentin. My pleasure. Yep. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks to our listeners. If you like this content, you can find past and upcoming episodes in aecworks.everse.com and at all of our Everse social media. We'd love to hear from you and recommendations for new content, so leave us a DM and we'll make sure to catch it.